Greetings, fellow Rotarians. I think this is about week 19 or so.
You can't start counting down until after Christmas.
Troy did it the entire year.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm allowed. Neil, thank you very much. Where'd you go?
I'm here.
Thank you for greeting today.
Oh, you're so welcome.
We're filling in for Paul. My shoulder's a little sore, but other than that, you did a great job. Everton, I know you have some pretty good friends in your family. So you're going to lead us in O Canada today. We'll see if they came from Dad.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all our sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true North, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Well done. We might let you do it every week, Everton. Please find the glass, hopefully yours, and join me in a toast to the Queen. And to Canada.
Canada and her.
And to the Kitchener-Westmount Rotary Club.
The Kitchener-Westmount.
Please bow your heads. Let us enjoy this food which we are about to receive, and let us thank all whose efforts have set this meal before us. Let us enjoy good companionship, and let each of us be good company to the others who are here today. Let us enjoy ourselves, but let us also never forget that many are less fortunate. Amen. If you are a Rotarian, please, and you have a guest, please introduce him or her. Jack.
I'm pleased to have with me today a young lady that approached us at the Oktoberfest Crown and Anchor, that's it, and saw the good work that we were doing there, even though some of us were working harder than others. Expressed an interest in learning more about Rotary and specifically about our club. So I invited her today to join us and meet and experience our club atmosphere. Tina Platt.
Tina, welcome, Tina. Anybody else? Jerome?
Yes, we have also with us today Don Leslie, and Don's our guest speaker today, and he'll be more properly introduced later on.
Welcome, Don. I think we've already welcomed our guest. So, Don,
And Tina.
and Tina.
Yep, that's
You have to go first.
Put the elbows up, right?
And that's why I get to sit with you, because then I get to come with you.
He did. He did. They were all taken before he had a chance to. Quite often what happens is people have these gathers you throw you put a suit on, it's like a walking with your company. Good. Yeah, first so what we do is instead, all these tables are set up just like this one, just in the ballroom. We have 3 screens, and we do trivia competition. So everybody gets so you're competing as a team. Your whole table is one team. Ed's table is another team. So we had 17 teams. last year, and they work together to answer 75 questions. The winner gets a trophy to take home, and there's also some prizes for them. So it's just fun. You are not about it. So that's what we do.
It was good.
Oh, you want this on your account? I can do that.
All right.
I'll write it and I'll just.
It's not John's fish. Yeah, they have two. One down kids are playing hockey and he's not using it for 6, 7, 8 That's what happens. Yeah. Got it. Now it's drove. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Is everybody coming out because of okay. I read some passages. So he's up for not too bad. He also he's fucking
May I join you?
I didn't think I was
Like good company. The second team had there outside Donald, so I
not the senior team, 5 years or more. I'll come up to the game. I'll have to be up something when
once a week, maybe.
Okay.
was the best sports story always for the sports achievement.
I'm waiting for a call. Right before.
Take pictures of the event, and it's email me an hour ago.
Right now.
Carolyn said, well,
It's a self-sustaining 70-acre site. 70-acre site, so all the energy that's used from that property is generated on the property. We built our office and everything. We've got townhouses all over the one out there.
Now the road gets almost as fast to go there as it is to Waterloo. And it's way quieter.
Would have been said. that.
It's actually on the kitchen side of
How much you actually kill?
expired. They didn't want to buy anything there. As soon as one came to water, they put that vodka and he paid for your membership in the gas station. These gas pumps are always away.
Well, there is an old timer, my mom used to drive it well, just to get gas, all the diesel.
So good customer member, what did you know?
I was closing on Monday. Friday before. Buyers the Friday morning. Truck went back out of the church.
Unless they operate right where they are, it takes on it.
And so the motorists have 4 grand trying to get the license plate. I saw you, I saw what you did.
And now they just want to change it on.
Anyway, now
Where the actual store is.
Rick, one for heavy industrial laying on the ground, and we're out. Friend putting my phone on the fire.
And in the last 5 years, they've had Audi's gone up, BMW's gone up, we've gone up.
Victoria Star just went
But they don't do shit. Renovation on their building. And now they're saying that they're going to change the zoning so that we can can't kick you out of your business.
Now we're trying to get people chat. They don't think people are thinking.
They want manufacturing, they want.
I don't know, I don't know way more you don't want to turn it over. So you're saying it could be a car dealership?
No, and if we sold the business, we would stay there.
Oh, yeah.
Right. You wanted to just buy the building.
Anything different than what it currently is. Heavy manufacturing.
What has to meet the heavy industry?
Well,
We've got how many plants on that? Two spots, you can call them across all the board. We employ more people than they do. That store and my store, both 50 full-time people. I don't know what they want, but.
We were able to do
Just to get some water, we will $1 million.
Stay on Sunday.
Again, they put this thing in place, they didn't think it would be as successful. They haven't made the adjustment yet. That has been, the Ioniq is pure electric, so you get a plug-in electric there. And then we have a couple of hybrids. Sonata, the Ioniq, and plug-in. They're selling? The Ioniq, Canada is actually selling more Ioniq than the US. So we're getting more supply coming in. It competes directly with the accuracy. So I happen to be back in the office. Small sedan.
They come in three iterations, so there's a gas one, a hybrid one, the gas one, it's right up like this. That's the best of it. Now we're coming around. They were doing it. There's chargers now. Full charger when you charge 20,000. For you to plug it into your garage at home overnight, the one charger they have now.
Sunny out, the windows tinted, like trash, and then so it's bright out, the lights still there. So this is the one side of the building. Hot air moves across in the winter. The cold side of the lights for the rear side of the fleet.
The manufacturers have to use that bacteria, or they'll have to take penalties.
Yeah.
Canada, I don't see it. Because of the range you have to drive. Like on a given day in Canada, Southern Ontario, you get up further. This is between towns to 3 or 4 hours. Undermated driving is 4 hours. It is 4 hours. And you add cold on top of that. That's a problem. Go ahead and electric power up there. For the hybrids, they say it's good. Unless you're doing solar. So you found the key. You've got a hybrid. Yeah. I haven't got the new lock yet, but I
If everybody has so long.
Hey! Oh, yeah.
50, but it's quite a bit higher. But the government grant that just brings it back into the reality. You're not going to pay for any gas.
So what does that do to hydro? Oh, yeah. Is there a
So yeah, every car goes into the but anyways, with these driving the hybrid, are the best in Canada. Because if your battery gets full, it charges your battery.
It's west from downtown.
You say that, but it takes years time to get out of place unless you want to drive a plastic, which I know you do. Oh, down at SEMA, we saw a Lincoln Continental convertible with suicide doors, and it was like immaculate. The guy had totally done the thing up, custom paint job. Oh, that was cool. So your rear doors, instead of opening like normally this way, they open this way. So if you got hit from behind and you were there, then it's squish you. Whereas if on a normal door, the door gets hit, it just gets taken off. The suicide door is open towards the back of the car. But it sure made good access to get to the side of the car as long as somebody didn't hit the door. Those are the cars too, where the front door was like 16 weight 400 pounds. The other neat one they're doing now is all these guys are looking for these barn to find little classic cars. You take them out, they'll paint them first. You just clean them, And if it's got birch fenders, they just clear coat over top of it. It's like a patina finish on the car.
The big thing on American
It's huge right now. They patina finish, got like little rust on it.
As long as the body is solid, they don't want to
And then they put their own same engine and powertrain.
And the interesting thing about it is,
If you put a hood on it, it looks like that, you can see that thing come down the road. And the guy steps on it, it's not like, what was that?
Oh, it's all right. I didn't know you owned the charming.
yes, he owned it. He owned it. Sold it out
So, you know, a company bought up all the years, the rights for the whole cars, Camaro, and a lot of the parts of it. I twisted their arm and bought the rights for the whole sheet metal. So if you bought one of those cars, all you do is the VIN plate. They can print you a brand new body for the thing, all brand new steel, original powertrain, but in order to bring it into Canada as not a modified car, you need an actual VIN plate on it. Like one piece off that whole car, this new one will be completely modified. I'll tell you what, you can go through it from scratch. Yeah, but if you buy one of those old ones, you gotta fix it up. It costs a fortune too. Especially when you gotta get it to sheet metal work because of the rust and cold and labor and that stuff. You gotta really love that car. We walked through there and I just saw the stand and you got Camaro, 66 Camaro, you got a Firebird there, the brand new body, scratch on it. I got talking to the guy and they bought the rights from General Motors, but make that shit up. They just stamped it up like they did back then. It's in the States.
That is a damn fine mustard.
It's a far cry. You guys looking for a vendor for a car that's monster. These guys are getting barbecue.
Lemon or olive oil? Work good, and they dip it into the whole mix.
Is that right? You start selling them by the kid local.
What do you get it? When I was in Canada, $8, I wanted to put lemon on my steak.
Trying to use I swear that's the only right.
Well done.
And I honestly everything about it. I realize they can't develop it even 2 years
Maybe the numbers can drive it. The industrial
And it's because they hired the best coaches here.
What happens is
Well, Wilford tourism.
that Olympics coming up. I decided to watch it live for the frozen meal.
Not a good time for everything.
He just reviewed
They've worked so hard to say it. Their insurance. The NHL pays it.
I think we'll continue the meeting now with our club business, starting with birthdays. Not many, but we do have one very important birthday, Maria Horner. There she is. How important? 17th? Well, we're reminding you now. November 17th. November 17th. We're not going to reveal the date. Wedding anniversaries, none. Club anniversaries, none. So that's easy. Club business. If you haven't already marked your calendar for December the 13th, that is our Christmas dinner at Westmount. So please mark that date down, December the 13th. Jack's going to send us an email so we can tick the box and all attend. Jack and I met about this last week, and he's got some really nice stuff planned for us this year. So it's going to be a great evening of celebration and recognition. We announced the board for next year at the meeting. We reveal who the next president is going to be after Laura. So it's going to be a very exciting night. So please mark that on your calendars and let Jack know when he sends the email out. April 21st and 22nd, I know that's far out there, but that's when we're doing our tree planting. There'll be more information on that, but you can mark that on your calendar. The Kinneview Titans kick off their season this Saturday, and I think John was going to mention something about a special thing they've got going on for the Saturdays.
Okay, Titans are back. They had a great season last year, making the playoffs, and I know several of you in here are pretty good basketball fans, and they kick off against Windsor, who put them out in the playoffs last year. 2 players back from last year. If you were at the Ranger game last night, Tamar Sutherland and Greg Morrow dropped the opening puck. And Pillar Sausages has stepped forward as a sponsor for the first game. So they've got, if you read the email from me, complimentary tickets, and they'll make a donation to Kids Ability. So this is a good kind of collaboration with Rotary. So we're hoping many people that Pillars can sponsor, make a donation to Kids Ability. If you have any questions, see me after. I'll tell you how you can get some tickets. If you want to treat your family or staff, whatever, and help Kids Ability the same time. Saturday night, 7 p.m. at the Odd.
Yeah, thanks, John. John, if you haven't been to one of these games, they're great. The quality of play is really high. When I initially went, I wasn't sure what it was going to be like university. It's way better. These guys can play. It's fast. So it's a lot of fun, and they put on a lot of entertainment for the fans also. So we had a great inaugural season last year, and it's a lot of fun. So try to make it.
We have a 7-footer this year.
Oh.
Actually, he's 6'11", so I'm rounding it up, but we have a 7-footer this
It's
year.
almost as big as Leo.
And he's white, so.
That's hard to believe. Karen Boyson wanted to give us some information on Spirit of Giving.
I'll use the microphone.
Okay, come on over.
I've been told people can't hear me. It is Spirit of Giving time again, and I think I mentioned last year that I was trying to step back from the leadership of it, and that has happened this year, fortunately for me. The program is now going to be led by the Director of Volunteers for Horizon, and that's kind of how I started out when I was in that position, and then transitioned into the volunteer that has done it for the last 10 years. So she got all nervous about how much work it was going to be for her, even though we've got good teams set up and I plan on helping out as much as I can. So we scaled it back from about 50 to 60 families to 20 this year, just in a transition year for her, so that it's more manageable. Now the idea was that we were hoping that most of those 20 families would have their own sponsor, so there wouldn't be the extra kind of work that had to happen around filling those extra packages. So we are still looking for family sponsors who would take on a family. I think we've got about 10 now, and we need 10 more for the 20 families that they want to support. So we're looking for individual families who would say, yes, I'll take on a family and then do the shopping. Between Katie, the Director of Volunteers, and I, we will coordinate all the effort that happens over at the warehouse that most of you are familiar with. But it's just a little bit of a change around the leadership and how many we're doing. We also are still hoping that deliveries will happen through our club, but again, we may not need as many people as we have in the past because there's fewer families. But I'll keep you posted on that and on the wrapping and any other ways that we can be involved. But right now, Katie just asked me to see if we could find a few more family sponsors who will take on a family. So, yeah,
Karen, just from a family sponsorship, approximately how much does that entail? Because I know you put a certain limit on per person kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
I would say, like if say a family of 4 with a mom and a dad and a couple kids, probably maybe up to about $300.
Okay, that's fair. No, that's fine.
And a bigger family, depends, some of them, you know, or some bigger families can be split. So I would say a larger family maybe closer to $400 or $500.
Okay.
So, and I just should mention too that the club has been very generous in giving us grants every year, and because of some accounting that was going on over at Horizon, I wasn't aware that we were sort of building up a nice reserve fund, so we still have money available to shop for families. The money is now being housed over at with Judy at hospice, so we have a little better handle on what that money is. And people like Annette Collins, Mike's wife, and Troy's wife, and a few others have agreed that they would shop for us. So it'll happen, it'll all happen, but it would be nice to get a couple more actual family sponsors.
Similar to what I did in the past with their tree of spirit of giving.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about that, Maria, because that worked really well last year.
Yeah.
And I'll connect Katie. Okay, wonderful.
Well, great, thanks, Maria. Thanks, Jared.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep you posted.
And President-elect Jerome Freiberger has something you wanted to offer?
I just wanted to announce that the Waterloo Knights of Columbus New Toys for the Kids Toy Drive is kicking off this week. On Saturday is the Santa Claus Parade, and they'll be there along the route collecting funds and toys. The fire department will be there collecting toys for that. We work in conjunction with the Waterloo Regional Auxiliary Police and the Stuff a Cruiser campaign. You might have seen them outside of some of the stores. And all the fire departments in the area are toy drop-off areas. So please consider buying a brand new unwrapped toy and dropping it off. There's, I think at the kickoff yesterday, we had a kickoff at Morty's, and they said that we helped 30 agencies across the region last year with toys. And it's not just Christmas time that these toys are given out. They're all year round. I know hospice gets toys for their people, and quite a few of the others. So if you have the time to come out to the parade, come out to the parade. They do accept money at the parade, but toys are collected by the fire department along the route. So go ahead.
Are you guys going along Weaver again this year?
I believe that's the route.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to advocate a bit for Jerome and the Knights of Columbus, the wife Janice runs the holiday support program at Family Children's Services, and it is an all year round thing because there's a lot of the toys that came from the Knights of Columbus last year they used throughout the year when there's birthdays and other special events, not just at the Christmas time. The workers are able to go to, kind of got a quasi toy store there, but they're able to provide some of these children with gifts for their birthdays and special occasions. So it's you guys do a great job, and it's very much appreciated.
Last year as well, they sent actually a whole truckload up to northern Ontario for the Indigenous people, for a lot of the families up there as well. So it's not only the region, but it's far-reaching, and I understand that over the course of the project now, we're encroaching on over $4 million worth of toys that we've collected and distributed.
Wow. So, Jerome, is it only brand new toys, or
yeah,
toys?
They're looking for brand new toys.
Brand new toys. Okay.
But you know what? If you'd like to donate batteries, there's very few things that go out today without batteries. I'm sure that they'd accept batteries and those type of things as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jerome. Great cause, fantastic cause. We're really proud that one of our Rotary members is spearheading that. You've been involved with that for quite a while too, haven't you?
6 years, 5 years.
Yeah. Well done. I think that's, next week our speakers are going to be the folks from the Athlete of the Year Awards Committee. That's going to be interesting. So don't miss next week's meeting. Is there anything else that members need to speak about today? Any business?
Just very briefly, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody in the room, to the people from the Rotary that came out to my trivia challenge on Saturday night. Our second annual trivia challenge was here at the hotel. Thank you to everyone who donated prizes. I really, truly appreciate it. We had probably the best prize table I've ever had. And we were and it paid off because we were able to raise, early figures indicate somewhere in the ballpark of about $12,000 we raised for Marillac Place.
Wow.
And that's all. Thank you again. I hope to see more of you at the third annual.
We're definitely going to have a Rotary table there. We're going to have to practice a little bit. I don't want to tell you where the Rotary table ended up, but we were in last place.
If it was a test, they would have been held back here.
I don't know if it was that bad. That's because Karen wasn't there to help us this year. 50-50 draw. Get your tickets out. If you are the proud owner of ticket number 552, come up and search for marbles. Brad. $20? Yeah, it's $53. Don't look yet because we forgot to transfer the marbles.
I think the jar, you can pull the jar out for it if you know.
Oh yeah, that would be even engineers would do.
How you do it at bank?
Well,
the accountant has to
open the bag.
Verify the marbles. Very good. No, it's definitely not black. The next lucky contestant is 568.
Keep it up.
Oh, done. Gotta get it up way up. 574. 574.
There we go.
All the tall guys.
I got that.
Terrible job. And the proud owner of 594 gets one of Dave Barth's books. 594.
Hey, Brad.
Hey, Brad.
Brad.
That's the style of wine.
There we go. Corporate karma. You might be able to use that, Brad.
Is that a hint?
Give it another store.
And of course, we've got Rotary trivia. We'll see. You guys failed miserably last week,
Yes,
so I'm hoping for better results this week. A bit of a tricky moment. What does the plus stand for in Polio Plus? Anybody know what the plus means?
More public disease. More.
Other diseases.
More specifically?
Oh, God. They're specific diseases.
Zero. Water.
Typhoid.
Malaria. Polio plus malaria.
You guys are sort of on the right track, but you got to do better than that. I'm going to give it to Judy. When they're providing the immunization, they're also providing vaccines for other preventable diseases. When they first started the polio campaign, they were providing the vaccine just for polio, and they found that kids were dying from other diseases. So they put a whole bunch of them together, and so they're providing the vaccine for many diseases now: diphtheria, whooping cough, and measles in particular. So that's the plus part, the polio plus. So Judy,
well done.
Whoa! All right, take along with that.
You can bring that to the next committee meeting.
You got it. Yeah.
So Judy, while you're standing,
yep,
you can come up and introduce Don.
And I have a question. Have we heard anything about Kids Ability or Christmas Free? We usually have in Christmas Free.
I have not heard anything about that. I haven't received an email. But you know what? It'll go on my to-do list, and maybe I'll contact them.
Okay. Because usually they have at the beginning of December.
Yeah.
If we need volunteers.
I haven't heard anything either.
No, I'll contact them and see if they need our help.
Yeah. Okay. Our guest speaker today is Dawn Leslie. Dawn is the general manager of the West Hill by Sifton, a retirement residence located in Waterloo at Ira Needles and Herb. He has overseen the construction, lease up, and ongoing management of the West Hill, 115-suite retirement residence that opened in 2013, as well as 7 West Hill, which is a 100-unit high-rise retiree apartment adjacent to the retirement residence that opened in September of this year. He has worked for Sifton Properties of London, Ontario for the past 6 years. Dawn has been involved in the retirement home sector for more than 20 years and has been involved in all aspects of the business: owner-operator, finance, construction, third-party management, and property acquisitions. He is a graduate of the University of Western Ontario. Prior to working in the retirement home sector, he was in the medical device industry, and I asked him at lunch. He's moved to town in the last 6 years, and when I asked him what he liked about it was, he said, lack of traffic. So I'm not quite sure where it came from, but lack of traffic in this area. When not looking after the needs of seniors, Don can be found on the water, as he is an avid sailor and racer. And please welcome Don.
Thank you, Judy. I used to live in Oakville, so I worked for a couple of years in Scarborough, and I had to drive from Oakville through downtown, up the Don Valley, and off at Eglinton. So that was always an interesting commute on a Friday. So now I'm up here. I like it much better. When I go back down, I curse the traffic, but most of the time it's manageable. The subject I want to talk to you today about is options for seniors living. It's probably not a topic a lot of people go out and shop for, not like a car or a new pair of golf clubs or something like that. Usually what happens is a need occurs and then you start shopping. So what I want to do is sort of give you a little bit of a background on some of the options, just so that you have a bit of a heads up, and a little proactive versus reactive. So I basically want to talk to you about the 2 main options of residential care for seniors in Ontario. One is retirement residences, and the other is the long-term care. Long-term care you may know as, people call them nursing homes, or previously they used to be called home for the aged. Retirement homes can be done in communities. There might be 2 or 3 different living options in a retirement community. In an LTC, the newer ones that are being built are built in pods so that people with similar diseases or concerns can be managed together in a better pod in a smaller area. I guess the big thing is what's the difference? Retirement residences look after people that need some assistance with daily living. Long-term cares are really geared to people that need a much heavier level of care. With retirement residences, again, people might come in for a variety of different reasons. Maybe a spouse has passed away and they're lonely, they want to socialize. Maybe they've fallen at home and they need a bit of assistance. Whereas long-term care is something which is a much more heavier care model where people require more constant nursing care. There's people that would go into different areas for different reasons, so I'm just going to talk about some of the differences and some of the areas that, just to give you some ideas and something to think about. I want to start with ownership because people get very confused about ownership of properties. A lot of people think that retirement homes are all privately owned and all long-term cares are run by the government. So retirement homes, the majority are privately owned and operate as a business for profit. There are some cases where there are retirement residents or resident communities that are attached to, say, religious affiliations or service clubs and things like that. Long-term care, 57% are actually privately owned, 24% are not-for-profit or charitable, and 17% are owned by the municipalities. To give you some idea of the numbers we're talking about, there's over 700 retirement residences in Ontario, and there's 626 long-term cares in Ontario as well. If you're building a retirement residence, you can, as an owner, you can choose where you want to build it. You can take a look at demographics and say, yeah, this is a good place to build. I can see a lot of potential, and you can go through the whole process. With the long-term care, all the beds are actually, the government runs the amount of beds that can be built. There's been a moratorium on building new long-term care beds for quite a while. So one of the things that's happening is the only way if you wanted to build a new home is you've got to buy the licenses from somebody else. This is becoming a real problem in Toronto at the moment because their older long-term cares in the city of Toronto aren't up to the standards, so they're asking that they all be rebuilt. The problem in Toronto is the land is so valuable in the downtown core that people are actually moving out of the city to build their new long-term care and selling the property in Toronto. So right now there's a big kerfuffle going back and forth in terms of, well, you know, how do we keep all the beds in the downtown core? So it's an interesting problem, but nobody seems to have an answer for it yet. I want to talk a little bit about operating the homes. Again, a little bit of confusion. Retirement homes are not subsidized by the government at all, not a single penny. So it's all the resident that moves in pays the whole freight. The long-term cares are subsidized by the government of Ontario. I'll talk a little bit more about the breakdown of long-term care in a minute, maybe. We're funded. We have to provide all our own financing. We have to go out. We have our residents that live with us. They pay us monthly for what's going on. The LTCs, part of it is funded by the government. Part of it you have to pay for. Currently, if you wanted a private room in a long-term care bed, you would have to pay just over $2,600 a month for that private room. They're in LTCs, they are geared to income in terms of you know, what you can afford to pay. There's different models that they have out there. Lower income people will always have a bed in a long-term care, just the subsidy works a little differently, okay? Long-term, sorry, yeah.
With regards to long-term care, there's a lot of talk, well, from what I've heard from people, is like their concern is that there's a lot of ward care, but does ward care still exist in long-term care, like 6 people in a room?
So you're talking about wards. So back about 12 years ago, the Ontario government came out with a new mandate for long-term cares. And what they said is any new long-term care, and at that time they had released 15,000 new beds into the marketplace. So what they said is I guess 20, 30 years ago, they were very institutionalized, like, as you say, maybe a ward with 6 beds. The new model was that semi-private rooms and built-in pods of 32. So you would have your own sort of wing with your own dining room and everything like that. So right now, in the new homes, the biggest is semi-private. In some of the older ones that haven't been rebuilt yet, you can have up to 4 people in a bed, in a ward.
Thank you.
There is funding right now for the older homes to be rebuilt. They have grants and they have funding that the ministry will provide with them. It doesn't cover 100% of the build, but there is a time frame where all the old homes have to be rebuilt. And that's the problem, as I mentioned in Toronto, is you suddenly had a nursing home that maybe had 150 beds and only had, you know, maybe 30 or 35 rooms. You're now telling them that they can keep their license, but they've got to build a building 3 times the size in downtown Toronto and keep the cost down. So it becomes a real issue that way. If there are any questions, just throw your hand up. Sorry.
You mentioned earlier there's a moratorium. Is that based on finance, or is there a perception that there's enough beds out there?
Well, what the government feels is that they don't really want to put people into nursing homes if they don't have to. They are really pushing home care. They want to bring the services to the people in their own home and stay there as long as they possibly can. With retirement residences, we're lucky in the Waterloo region that we have home care that comes in. So if you're in your home getting an hour of home care a day, you can move into a retirement residence and the care will come with you. The problem becomes, after a certain length of time, if you're requiring 3 or 4 or 5 hours of care a day, that just can't be done in your own home properly. You have a PSW that calls in sick, so a family member has to come and look after mom or dad. So eventually at some stage you have to move into either a retirement residence, or if you do qualify, you can move into an LTC. Was there a question back there? No? So talking about LTCs, there is a wait list. If you qualified for a long-term care bed today, you get a choice of, you pick your top 5 homes that you want. The wait list is anywhere from 18 months to 3.5, 4 years. So what usually happens is you run into a crisis where maybe you've fallen at home or something like that, and you have to go into an LTC right away. They will transition you back to your home with 24-hour care or to a retirement residence, and then you'll be on the emergency placement list, and it can take anywhere from 3 months to 9 months to get into an LTC bed. So as I say, you know, we're trying to be more proactive versus reactive, because if you're in the hospital and they're telling you we're discharging mom, where do you want her to go? You know, it's sort of like a panic buy sort of situation where you really want to have all the facts. Where are we? So I think I talked a little bit about the moving in. Again, at any time you can come and go to a retirement residence, have an assessment done. If we can look after you, you can move in the next day if there's a suite available. With long-term care, you have to have a doctor's note and you have to be assessed by a CCAC, and they deem whether or not you're at a level of care that you require an LTC. If you do require an LTC, as I said, you fill out the forms and you go on the wait list. One of the things that you'll see there's quite a few around, is there'll be a retirement residence and an LTC built together in a sort of a complex. And a lot of people feel that if you're in the retirement residence, especially couples, if you've got two, one that's health is not as good as the other, if I move into that retirement residence, maybe my wife will move over to the LTC, but I can just walk across the hallway and visit her. that's not actually the case. They, you know, they put you where the first bed is.
What if you require LTC, you have the cash, let's say you can afford the, what is it, $2,600 for a private room, you said?
$2,600, yeah.
So let's say I have $2,600 a month. What kind of guarantees do I have that there's a bed?
None.
Do I gotta take a like I still gotta go into work here? Or
No, well, the big thing is the $2,600 is your portion that you pay. The government pays about $115 a day on top of that for the nursing care and everything like that. Your $2,600 gets you just the accommodation of the private suite, private room. You go on the wait list like everybody else. It's kind of like going to the emergency department here. If you're number 20 in line, you wait.
And if I don't have the cash, I definitely can't get private stuff.
If you don't have the cash, no, you can't get private. So you would get a semi-private suite. There's not, when they're building these new LTCs, there's not a lot of private rooms. Again, because of the real estate and the size of building they have to build, then you know the majority of the rooms are semi-private. We talked a little bit about the government with long-term cares. With retirement residences, we are governed as well. It's not the Wild West. We're responsible to the RHRA, the Retirement Home Regulatory Authority. They come in, they do inspections on us. You know, they make sure our policy and procedures are in place, our paperwork, everything like that. So we do get inspected on a random basis. And I got a call last Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon saying Wednesday morning they were going to be in. So they don't give you much notice at all. So luckily our paperwork was in line, so we're pretty good that way. LTCs, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Long-Term Care and Health. They're the ones that say what your staffing levels are, what they're going to pay you. They have inspectors that come in and make sure that everything, all the boxes are checked. Much, much higher regulated than a retirement residence, and it should be because of the level of care is much higher. Care levels, I think I touched on that a little bit. With a retirement residence, we assess you to see if we can look after you. There's certain things we cannot do, and in that case, like say if somebody is bedridden, you know, we're not trained or have the staff to look after you that way. That's when you would be qualified for an LTC. We do have people, retirement residences. Memory care is a hot topic. Alzheimer's, dementia, everything you read in the papers, it's getting higher and higher. Retirement residences can look after a lot of people. You know, if dementia is the only issue, we can manage that very well. There are retirement residences that have memory care units, which is for somebody that's further along in that dementia scale that are maybe exit seeking, you know, they go wandering off and or have some other issues, and those you might have heard of, they call them locked units, where they have restricted access so people can't get in and out. So, yes?
Just the way you're describing it, it sounds like in LTC, for a couple, it's pretty likely that they're going to be split if there is issues that arise as the needs arise. Is that right?
Yes, with couples. I don't know if a lot of you saw in the local news a number of months ago about how long it took to get a couple reunited. One of them was in an LTC. I think one was in another LTC, and it took the family getting the TV station involved to get them back together. What happens is they put the second spouse as a priority if you're both qualified for LTC, and what they will do is usually one will go first, and then they'll really try hard to get the next person in as quick as they can. They don't usually share a room, because if you've got Bob and Bill in one room, and Bill's okay and your wife comes in, she could be on another floor, but at least they're in the same building, and they really do try to get them together as quick as they can. But again, it is very tough for a couple going to an LTC. So we talked a little bit about costs. Obviously, retirement residences, there is a cost involved. We take a look at what we provide. We basically call a retirement residence a need-based buy. It's not usually a lifestyle choice. It's something that's happened in somebody's life that they need some help. Again, it could be socialization, it could be some assistance with daily living. Maybe it's a man that's lost his spouse and the man's never cooked in his life. So he doesn't know his way around a kitchen, and he's eating out all the time, and he loses weight and everything. And so the daughter suddenly goes, "Dad, I bought those bananas 5 weeks ago and they're still in the fridge." And that's sort of an area where then, maybe it's time to move into somewhere that cooks your meals and does your laundry and does your, your housekeeping and that. So we are covered by the Residential Tenancy Act, so we can't move our prices up all over the place. We are also in a competitive market, especially in the Waterloo region. There are a large number of options for retirement living. So it is pretty competitive, and the costs we keep as low as possible. Yes?
Can you give us just some sort of range or ballpark of what?
A range or ballpark for retirement living. Again, it depends on the services you're getting, but you can start off at about $2,600 a month and go up to $7,000, $8,000 a month, depending on what what the retirement residence provides, and the size of the suite and the amenities and things like that. I was involved with Lanark Place when I first joined Sifton. We used to own that. Again, what I would call more a mid-level retirement residence versus the West Hill, which is maybe more you would term more high-end. But there's certain things in any retirement you need to take a look at and see how it fits your needs and that. Looking at my time, I'm keeping track of time here. So we talked about, can you afford an LTC or not? This is one of the things I wanted to talk about. If you have absolutely no money, the government will subsidize you. They basically, you take your CPP and your old age security, your disability check, whatever you have, that goes towards the LTC, but you get $143 a month from the government, which is a comfort allowance to buy, like, your TV or your haircut or things like that. So there is programs in place, for lower income people, for LTCs and that. There is some subsidy retirement residences as well in the Waterloo area. I know of 3 that have a certain number of subsidized beds. It's very similar to every other age group of people that are on the lower income scale. Housing is a major concern. There are shortages. There's not a lot of beds for people in the retirement side. Again, cost of building, cost of regulations, everything like that makes it very difficult to survive running a business on what the subsidy is paid. I talked a little bit about health assessment. We do a health assessment, LTC does as well. We all need to know who's your power of attorney, who's your power of attorney for care, and we also need to know any advance directives and everything like that. I talked a little bit about affordability. If you sit down with a piece of paper, take a look at what it costs to rent your house, how much you spend on groceries, entertainment, everything like that, you can do a spreadsheet out, and we can do a spreadsheet comparing what a retirement residence costs, and it actually marries up quite closely. So we won't do the scenario, but I just want to talk to you a bit about when to help your parents, because that's always the most difficult conversation to have. Seniors are proud, and as I say, A lot of times they really feel that, you know, I've lived in this house for 67 years and the only way I'm going out is in a pine box. You know, but can you come over and fix a dishwasher? Oh, and can you pick up groceries for me? And can you do this? Can you do that? So basically we take a look at what some of the signs are. You know, if you get a call saying I've just lost my license, that's a pretty good indication that maybe there's something changing. Frequent falls, weight loss, they keep forgetting to take their medication, things like that, isolation, loneliness. If your neighbor keeps calling you going, I haven't seen your dad in 3 days, and you know, or the lights have been on the house for the last 4 days, you know, that's really maybe a time where you should be seriously taking a look at you know, what the options are. I'll tell you a little bit about going in, whether you're going to an LTC or a retirement residence. When you're looking at things, you've got to just observe the cleanliness. Are there activities going on? Staff, you know, outdoor areas. I really recommend going and having lunch or dinner at a retirement residence. Food is the #1 thing that people complain about or talk about in a retirement residence, because 3 times a day, they come down to the same place, sometimes sitting with the same people, eating meals. So I really strongly suggest you have a meal. Safety and security, personal care, again, things like that. And what you're looking for the friendliness of the staff. You're looking for, you know, if my dad needs more care, can you handle it? If my mom goes to hospital, you know, how can she come back, or you know, how well does she have to be to come back? Things like that. So accommodations, there's you know, you can do trial stays. We have a winter stay program. A lot of places do. Dad, you know, you're lonely at home. You know, in the winter you don't get out. Why don't you come and stay for 4 months at a retirement residence? It's a nice sort of transition in. There's all different types of suites. Studios, 1 bedroom, 1 + 10, 2 bedrooms. There's lots of different features. There's lots of different amenities in all different retirement residences. You know, if your mom has been a knitter all her life, you want to make sure that you've got, you know, a craft room. If that's not a big deal, don't worry about it. Okay? Staffing, we have registered staff on, all retirements do, retirement homes do. We have recreation, we have chefs, you name it, we have it. I just wanted to leave you with this last slide. This is our new property, 7 West Hill. It's an unusual property that it's an apartment building, but it's got a club package to it, very similar to a country club. This is a real easy transition for moving people who need a bit of assistance in. We opened in September. We still haven't got full occupancy of the building, and we're already at 55% occupied, and we still have deposits for about another 25 units. We give them some meals. We give them 20 meals a month. We do weekly housekeeping, a recreation program, and the big thing that we give them is emergency first response. So if the husband has a heart condition and the wife is afraid to leave the apartment at all, because what if he falls and what if he has a heart attack, she can now go out and play cards downstairs with the other ladies. If there is an issue, they push the button and our nurses come across and look after them. Very successful model. And we have a link between the 2 buildings, so they come over to the retirement residence and they can participate in some of the activities over there as well. And then the other seniors options, you can stay at home, adult communities, adult-friendly apartments, and life lease communities, which we actually started talking a little bit about there, but we didn't get too far. A bunch of links and questions. Sorry, I just ran through that end. I just want to make sure we're out here on time. If anybody has any questions, they can ask me afterwards. I can give you my card if you're interested. We can go from there. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Don.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Don. We really appreciate you coming in and speaking to us on the differences between retirement residences and long-term care. I know everyone in the room has probably heard some horror stories and dealing with their parents or friends of parents and things like that that are busy looking for a place to stay. I know my uncle, his mom, like they're on a waiting list right now, and they're paying I think $300 a day just for a nurse to come in and take care of her. So it's very expensive, and as I'm in the financial services industry, so we try to make sure that people actually save for that part of their retirement years, because it can add up after a while. So as a thank you, we restored the eyesight of a person, let's see here, Mr. Rafiq from India. So we restored, he's 52, sorry. So we restored someone's eyesight on your behalf.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Turn the lights on. No, there's switch these.
Thanks very much, Don. Great talk. It's certainly relevant for lots of us, including myself. If there is no other business for the good of Rotary, meeting adjourned.
Way to go.
Parking passes are here for those who can pick them up.
What's your name? What's your last name?